All right, so today we're going to do something really cool. We're going to give your code a brain. We're diving into Java conditionals. These are the tools that let your programs actually make decisions and react to stuff instead of just blindly following a script. When you think about it, most ASIC programs are like a train on a single track. They start at the top, run the first line, then the second, and just keep going straight down until they hit the end. No detours, no choices. It's predictable, sure, but it's not very smart, is it? And that's the big question, right? Real life isn't just a straight line. We're constantly making choices. So, what if we want our code to do the same? What if we wanted to check if a user is logged in before showing a page, or if it's the weekend, or if a player's score is high enough to win? How do we build those forks in the road? Well, that very first fork in the road is created with a simple but honestly an incredibly powerful tool, the if statement. This is the absolute bedrock of decision making in pretty much every programming language out there, and especially in Java. Okay, but before we can even use an if, we need a condition. And a condition is just a fancy word for a question that can only be answered with true or false. That's it. It's a simple yes or no question. Is the light green? True or false? Is the number bigger than 10? True or false? Let's look at a super relatable example here. Inside those parentheses, the code is asking a question. Hey, is the variable is tired equal to true? If the answer is yes, then, and only then, it runs the code inside the curly braces, which in this case is drink coffee. If is tired is false, the program just completely skips that block and moves right along. And the structure is so simple when you break it down. It's really just three parts. First, you've got the keyword if. Second, you put your true or false question, your condition, inside the parentheses. And finally, the curly braces hold all the code that should run only if that condition turns out to be true. That's the entire setup. So the if statement is awesome for a do this or, do nothing situation. But what if you want your code to make a real choice between two different actions? Do this or else do that. For that, we need to bring in a friend for if, and its name is else. Let's build this out step by step. We always start with our if statement and a condition. Here, our program is checking a variable called isRaining. It's asking that simple question, is it raining right now? Now, if the answer to that question is true, our path is clear. We execute the code in the first block, take umbrella. Makes sense. But what if the answer is false? Well, right now, our code doesn't have a plan B. It just does nothing. To handle that false case, we add a new keyword right after that first code block, else. The easiest way to think about else is that it just means otherwise. So we're saying, if it's raining, do this. Otherwise. Otherwise, we give it a totally different block of code to run instead. Wear sunglasses. This creates a guaranteed choice. One of these two blocks is always going to run, but they will never both run. The code has to follow one path or the other. But of course, life isn't always a simple either-or choice, right? What if it's not raining, but it's cloudy, or maybe it's windy? For those situations, you can use else if to chain multiple questions together. It lets you ask a second question if the first one was false, creating a whole ladder of different choices. Building those really long chains of if, else, if statements can get a little messy and hard to read sometimes. So for certain situations, Java gives us a much cleaner, more elegant tool. I like to think of it as the express lane for handling lots of options, the switch statement. So a switch statement has a very specific job. You use it when you have one single variable and you want to do different things based on its exact value. Think about checking a day of the week variable and doing one thing for Monday, another for Tuesday, and another for Wednesday. That's a perfect job for a switch. And here you can see exactly why the switch is so nice. On the left, that if-else-if ladder, it works, but it's pretty repetitive, right? We keep saying day equals equals over and over. Now look at the switch on the right. So much cleaner. You just say the variable day one time, then you list out each case you want to handle. Oh, and see that break keyword? That's essential. It tells Java, hey, we found our match, run the code, and then get out of the switch. Without it, the code would just keep running into the next case, which is usually not what you want. So, let's just pull back for a second and look at what we've actually accomplished here. We started with a program that could only walk in a straight line, completely oblivious to everything. But now, you're in control. You've learned the fundamental ways to make your code intelligent and responsive. Let's just recap your new programming powers. With the basic if statement, you now have the power to run code conditionally, With if-else, you can make your code choose between two totally different paths. By adding else-if, you can build these complex, multi-branch decision trees. And with the switch statement, you have the power to handle a whole bunch of specific cases in a really clean, organized way. You've really gone from just writing instructions to writing logic. And that really is the main takeaway. You're no longer writing programs that just follow a simple script. You can now build things that react, that adapt, and that make choices based on data and what a user does. You've basically taught them how to think. So the only question left is, what are you going to teach them to do first?